I know oftentimes they'll describe your music just blankly as country, but how do you tend to describe the music you make?
I definitely think when I first started, it was definitely more pop country. Then I transitioned more to country pop. And now I would say my music feels a lot more like 90s, early 2000s country. And that was always where I wanted to be. Those have been always my inspirations. Like I'm a Leanne Rimes, Martina McBride, Faith Hill, Jody Messina person. And it's really helpful that everyone's leaning into like the nostalgia of country these days. So I kind of think that that's where I would describe my music, especially how it's evolved over.
You
You're
touched
fine.
on a couple of the influences you had, but were there artists that you listened to when you were growing up that really influenced you as the artist you are today?
Very oddly enough, Celine Dion, which is not country at all, but she was really the first for me experience into music. Like I just was like enamored by her. One, how can you not be? Her voice literally is feels like it's not in this world. So that was my first concert I ever went to. I was, I think, 4 or 5. I knew every lyric. I think people in the audience thought I was a crazy kid. I just knew I wanted to stand on a stage and hold a microphone. So not necessarily her sound has inspired me because obviously we don't sound anything alike, but it was her work ethic and how I remember watching interview after interview of her of how she never considered herself to be at the peak of how good she was going to be. She was always wanting to work more and more and more. And that taught me something even before I even got into this. So, but if it were to country music, the ones that really inspired me was Leanne Rimes. I think for the first time I heard her, and I think she sang the national anthem at like an NFL game, and and because she was on Star Search, I think when she was a kid, and that's how I was like, yeah, that's the genre I want to be in. Whatever she does, that's what I want to do. And then when How Do I Live came out, I remember I got the cassette tape and put it in my little like Walkman. And I just like, and on that cassette tape, on the other side was her version of the national anthem. So I sang the national anthem anywhere I could go. I think my parents were like, what? How patriotic is our kid? Like, this is, and to be honest, I don't think I even knew really what that song stood for. I had no idea, but I just wanted to do what Leanne Rimes did. That's all I wanted to do. And that was like my entry into music was singing the national anthem everywhere I could go. And now what's funny is I do it now, like very in specific places because it terrifies me now. As a kid, I don't know how I was able to just stand up there and belt it out, no
You're
problem.
fearless back then.
You are, as a kid, you're fearless. Because as an adult, singing that song, I mean, people are ruthless. People are horrible when it comes to that song. And I get it. It's a very it means a lot and I get that, but wow, I mean, I remember I go over the lyrics in my head. I've sang it hundreds of times, by the way. I go over my lyrics over and over and over and over again, and this last time I sang it, it was at a NASCAR um cup race, and I stood up there and it was so sweet. The man who gives the prayer at the beginning of every race, um like a priest is coming up to me and he's like trying to say something really nice to me, and I'm like looking ahead and like, I really want to hear what you're saying because you're so sweet. And I was like, and it's really important what you're saying to me about like you need to leave me alone because I have to like, oh, say can you see by the dawn's early light, like I'm constantly doing that in my head because it's so nerve-wracking.
I need to get these words specifically perfect.
I forget which one it was. It's Christina Aguilera at a Super Bowl repeated the first verse twice once. And I remember being the only one at a college party, right, that like recognized it because I've sang it so much. No one else knew, but I was like, oh, she's gonna get catch heat for that one. And I'm like, oh no, and because that's like my biggest nightmare. That's a huge fear. I go to bed like in sweats thinking about that sometimes. I can't even think about it.
Well, at least we can focus on your own music then.
Yeah, I feel like I got that. I feel like it's hard, and plus, if you forget those lyrics, no one else really knows.
There's a little room for errors there.
There's way more room for error there.
Your song, I'm Your Woman, is out now. What kind of response have you been receiving to it from the fans?
What's really cool, and I think the very first time I heard this, like a month or so ago, I didn't know how I like felt. I didn't know how to feel when I heard this, but now I love it. So before "I'm Your Woman" as the first single back out, I hadn't written any of my music. It was all music that had been pitched to me. And I really took that job very seriously, as well as being kind of a vehicle for really great songs. This is the first music where I'm a co writer on it. And I was getting the feedback that this is their favorite stuff I've ever put out. And at first I go, wait, you don't like any other stuff I've ever put out? Like all the radio programmers, because when I send stuff out to radio, I get like a one sheet once a week of like radio programmers' responses to the song. And that could be really hard on you every once in a while to read through it. Because sometimes they're like like they're very like cold about it, right? And this time I got not one negative thing. It was all like, this is my favorite single she's put out. And I'm like, whoa, like that's really cool. One, at first I was like, ooh, what does that mean? And then I stopped to think and I was like, this is the stuff that I've been the most nervous about because this is the first time I've been a co-writer on all my music. So these are actually my words. And what we're saying is my words are actually more receptive than when I sing other people's words. And that was a huge awakening for me in a really, really good way. So I'm really excited for the rest of it to come out because if they liked that, then I would assume people are going to like the other stuff too, and which means that there's room for my voice in this community when at first I didn't know if there was going to be room for my voice.
What inspired this song?
So for "I'm Your Woman," which was so ironic, it was one of the first songs I wrote, and it was actually while I was still engaged to somebody. So I had no intention of this song meaning a lot to me personally in the sense of me hearing my own words. It was more for other women and other people and how I want them to look at themselves and view themselves while finding a partner. And now it's so weird that I went through my broken engagement and I was like, wow, I'm now taking my own words. Like I'm listening to this as in this was just like entering into a whole new era. And I feel like we overuse the word era now because of Taylor Swift, but a whole other version of me that I didn't realize I was kind of unlocking. And that was really cool. This song actually started with a picture of my dad and I believe I'm like 3 years old or 4 years old on the couch and he's reading me a book about Snow White. And we are a big Disney family. We're like oddly obsessed with Disney, I would say. My mom worked there when she was younger. I used to have an annual pass. I go all the time because I really do have this belief in happily ever after. I believe in the fairy tale. Now, a fairy tale looks different for everybody. It doesn't mean you live in a big house on the hill with a castle and all that other stuff. It's very subjective to how you view the fairy tale. Like for me, a fairy tale is coming home to someone and I cook dinner and we sit on the couch and we share a glass of wine. Like that can be a fairy tale. So my dad has always done a really good job at instilling in my sister and I that we deserve the fairy tale, that we're worth that. And that's what I wanted this song to symbolize for other people is that you are worth that. You are worth finding someone who looks at you like the world stops and ends with, like he begins and stops with you. Like I believe that. And no matter how much I get knocked down or I'm hurt, I've always been the gal that wears my heart on my sleeve and just goes for it again and again because they're all going to be the wrong one until they're the right one. And you don't find the right one by wallowing around about the wrong one. So that's always been my outlook on love. And that's kind of what I wanted to do with this song is make people feel like, hey, you have a lot to offer. And if it's not the right one, there's going to be someone that's going to be worth it. And they're going to want to give you all of that. And I know who I am as a partner and I know what I offer. And it wasn't right for the last one, but hopefully it's for the next one.
Absolutely. And I'm sure you've gotten a ton of fan response how they've related to this particular song themselves and maybe heard your story too about broken engagement and talked about it in their way as well.
Yeah, and I really wanted the first song out. I know I've released two now, but the one that's at radio right now is "I'm Your Woman." And I always like to release an upbeat song first because I'm a very upbeat person. So it'd be really weird if I only release, like, even though I only listen to sad music, I love that's my jam. Like if you looked at my phone and the music I listen to, you'd be like, gosh, she must be so depressed. And I'm not. It's just the music that I love the most, that I connect to the most. But I know if people are hearing me for the first time, I want people to know me overall. And overall, I'm a really positive, upbeat person. And I don't ever want an audience to be confused with the fact that I wallow in my sadness all the time, because I don't.
Well, this is a prelude to an incredible EP that drops here at the end of May, and it's titled the exact same thing as this beautiful song. What's are some themes you'll be exploring on this EP?
Yeah, so whenever I release an EP, this will be my third EP that I've released since I've moved here to Nashville. And I try and make it a story. So I take, even though I know a lot of people cherry pick songs, which I wish we would go back to having to buy the whole album and not being able to cherry pick. Because I think a lot of artists do position their songs in an order for a reason. So this order of songs does tell a story of, and I love that I titled it the first single of I'm Your Woman, because it really does describe me and the evolution of what I've been going through since you've last heard from me, which was the idea of falling in love at first, the confusion of it, the heartbreak of it, and now the getting over it and the healing aspect of it and the next steps. So you're going to hear that from start to finish as you go through it. And I really wish we listened to music in that way still. And I know most of us don't anymore. And that's really heartbreaking, because I remember when I would go to a store and I'd buy the album, and you'd start at track 1 and you'd end at track 13 or 15. And it did tell a story. And I'm very much like that when I put my stuff together. So when people hear this, or they get to hear me talk about it, they'll know that it does tell an evolution of me. And I'm really, really proud of this work because it's my voice.
There's 8 songs on the EP, 6 of which you had a hand in writing, which is incredible. What's your songwriting process? Do you have one where you need to have music before you can come up with lyrics, or is it different every time?
So I'm really upfront and honest about me as a quote unquote songwriter. I do not consider myself a songwriter. I call myself a co-writer. I don't think I've earned the badge of being a songwriter yet, because I just think there are people out there who are songwriters. And those people can be locked in a room alone and come out with a finished product. I am just not very good at the melody aspect. And this is why I am so blessed that I'm surrounded by and in a community that are literally geniuses at things like this. And it just comes to them. And they want to help you along this process too, to help you build your craft. And I will say what I contribute, and I feel like I'm actually pretty good at, is I love coming up with the idea. I love coming up with a title. I love a plot line. That is something that just matters so much to me, because at the end of the day, I have to sing about this. So it has to be something that is like internally in me. And that's even how I picked songs that were pitched to me. I think I would only listen to a song for 30 seconds. And if I didn't like it, I did not record it. I did not even take a second look at it, because I had to relate to something so much so. And now it's so easy for me because I'm writing it. So I have no choice but to relate to it. But I will say my process is definitely more on the lines of the ideas. And I'm far more a lyricist than I am with melody. I'm still working on that. I think I'm surrounded by people who are so good at it that I don't even know if that's going to ever be my thing. I love words. I think when I listen to a song, I listen to the words far more than I hear the melody. And I know both are equally as important. Like I know my mom, she has poor hearing anyway, so she only feels the melody, like she can tell a song, like if she likes it just by the beat. And I totally understand that. Like I know there's a lot of people that listen to music that way. I'm just more of like, what are they saying? I'm really invested into the storytelling. But the more I've become in these songwriting rooms and been a part of the process, I've realized that a melody can tell a story just as powerful as the words can. And that's something that's so magical about music that I'm learning more and more, is that, my gosh, I just think about like the song What Hurts the Most. I think if you took the lyrics completely away and you just played the instrumental, you could probably still feel that story.
The
and
violin and everything to it.
everything. And that is really magical about music, and especially country music. I think we're very good at being able to tell a story without lyrics at all. And I think that that's something I'm still learning, and I'm really hoping that that comes to me eventually. But I will say that ever since I've pushed myself to be in these writing rooms, I didn't think I was going to commit to this long term. I thought I was just going to do it just right now and get people off my back a little bit. And now I'm hooked, and I can't wait for when I see a write on my calendar. I get really, really, really excited.
You talked about your songwriting and being hands-on. How hands-on are you then when it comes to the production side of the music that you make?
I love being a part of every step of the way. I have yet to be considered a producer on any of my music because, again, I kind of feel making music is like building a house. The person who lays the foundation isn't necessarily the person that puts in the plumbing. So I kind of trust my team in the sense of I've I've brought you on and you've attacked. We're together because this is what you're good at. This is what I'm good at. So I do like to trust the process. And I don't like to be the girl that thinks she knows it all or has the best opinion in the room because I certainly don't, but I do know what I like. So I am very opinionated in the sense of what I feel like I'm connecting to. But when it comes to the production, I'm there. I'm very present. I want to be there for every stage of it. One, if you're not there when the musicians are laying down the instruments, you are missing out. It is the best and most incredible magical experience you could ever have if you are a musician in this town. And if you're just a listener and a fan of music, oh my gosh, I hope one day they just open up studios for people to see these people at work, because that is, I can't explain that other than more than a God-given talent. They don't even have to listen to the whole song, and they somehow go in there and they play it. And I go, how? You didn't even hear the whole thing. And they are just that magnificent. So I love being a part of every process. Now, I'm very much more hands-on when it comes to the creative side behind the song. So I'm all on board. I create every visual for my music videos. I work very close with my director, Robert Chavers, who has done every single thing for me because I don't think I could ever stray away from him because we just get each other. I think we can read each other's minds now without even talking. But I am so hands-on in that world when it comes to my photo shoots, the imagery, especially the music videos. I wish people liked music videos more than they do anymore because I take so much pride in the music videos that I really wish people cared more. Oh, if I could go back to the 2000s when people just really wanted to watch a music video. But on the creative side, I'm very, very, very hands-on. And I'm also really opinionated and honest when I hear something back with music. If I don't feel it or I don't like it, then I will say something. But you do have to trust your team. I trust my team wholeheartedly, and I trust their opinions. And sometimes we disagree, and sometimes it goes my way, and sometimes it goes their way because I do trust them.
The EP comes out May 31st. How do you plan to celebrate?
Gosh, I don't know. I don't even know if I'm in town. I'm never in town these days. But I do know that what's so exciting about the future and going forward from this EP is because I'm a co-writer on most of it. I now get to participate in writers' rounds, which is really cool. For 7 years, I've been in town being kind of like an outsider in a community that I just kind of like am peeping in through the windows, wanting to be a part of. And now I get to actually perform, which is the thing that the reason why I came here is because I love to perform. And I never could do that authentically because I've never released music that I was a writer on. So now I get to actually be up there with other artists and participate in these things. And I think that's what I'm most excited about celebrating, is that I actually get to get up and start performing my own words and being a part of a community that I think I was so desperately wanting to be a part of. And now I really feel like I'm here in Nashville after 7 years. I kind of feel like now I'm really taking on the entire entity of what it means to be an artist here.
Well, who is someone you would love to collaborate with on a song in the future? Clearly,
Ooh.
Leanne is out there in the ether for us.
Oh my goodness. I've always been a huge, I know they've already like quote unquote retired. Um, but I would die to do something with Rascal Flats. They were a huge reason, again, is for me as entering into country music. when I heard These Days for the first time, I remember exactly where I was. I was in seventh grade in a car on my way home from the movie theaters. And I was like, Gary stops me in my tracks with his voice. And as intimidating as it may be to sing alongside him, because I don't know if I could even hold a flame next to him, but I think it would just be a really, really cool thing to sing alongside Gary. That whenever I sang in cover bands or did things throughout the years, I always sang Rascal Flatts songs because I never had to change the key. We both have the same pitch voice where I never had to tell my band to learn the song in a different key, which was really, I guess, funny and ironic. And my number one go-to song when I sing all the time is What Hurts the Most, because it's a great song for the crowd. Everyone loves it. Um, but yeah, I think Rascal Flatts, if they were to ever like come out of hiatus, I would love to do something with Rascal Flatts.
Have my fingers crossed. We'll see what we
Yeah.
can do. What would you like to say to everyone who are fans and supporters of the beautiful music that you make?
I will never have the words to say thank you for people who have stuck around for as long as I mean, I think anybody in this town knows as an independent artist and even as a signed artist, the struggles and the investment you have to put into yourself and the ebbs and the flows and the ups and downs and hard rights and lefts you have to take. And for someone to have been around for my first single to now and who's still listening, I am so immensely grateful because this is all I've ever wanted to do. I've never had a plan B. I've always believed the second you have a plan B, that means you've already admitted that plan A has failed. And I know this is not necessarily a lucrative job. Most people don't make money doing this. And, but I love it. And that saying that you never will have to work a day in your life if you do what you love. And I genuinely believe that this is something that's pulled me out of my darkest moments. I've always just been a lover of music. Music is a unifying thing. It brings us all together, especially to listeners of mine. I don't even like to say that I have a fan, just audiences and people who listen to my music. This is unifying us. This is a language. Music is a language that we all can speak together, that we all can find a way to bond together and share stories. And that's all I can ever hope, is that my music resonates with somebody and that they say, wow, that song made me feel a little less alone. And that's all I can ask for. That's all I do. And I can't tell you the countless amount of artists that have done that for me. So if I could just do that for one person, then I kind of feel like I have the best job in the world. So thank you to anybody who streams a song, purchases a song, anything. I mean, that it does mean more to me than you could ever know. And I know every artist would say that because of how much this takes to do this job. um, it takes kind of a crazy person to do this a little bit. And I consider myself pretty crazy. So I'm going to keep on keeping on until I'm totally forced out. But I love this. And so the fact that anybody listens to me gets me to continue what I do, which I'm so grateful for.
Well,